Reconocido doctor en quiropráctica, especializado en neurociencias, conferencista internacional y autor de bestsellers tales como Sobrenatural, El placebo eres tú y Deja de ser tú. Su misión es ayudar a las personas a transformar sus vidas a través de una fórmula práctica que conjuga el análisis de datos y la unificación del mayor número de ramas de la ciencia. Inspirado en los últimos descubrimientos en neurociencia, epigenética y física cuántica, el Dr. Joe Dispenza busca enseñarles a las personas cómo sanar su cuerpo, cómo realizar cambios significativos y evolucionar en el nivel de conciencia. Desde el año 2010, trabaja en colaboración con científicos y universidades para realizar estudios extensivos acerca de los efectos de la meditación en el cerebro y en el cuerpo. Escaneos cerebrales y mediciones de la frecuencia cardíaca, que demuestran que las emociones elevadas y la autorregulación están íntimamente relacionadas con la salud mente-cuerpo. Desde su perspectiva, las meditaciones basadas en la ciencia son herramientas poderosas y transformadoras que ayudan a cultivar una nueva personalidad y a crear un nuevo futuro.
Con esta presentación le damos la bienvenida al doctor Joe Dispenza, que se hizo un lugar en su agenda para recibirnos directamente desde Dallas. Welcome, Dr. Joe Dispenza. It's an honor for us to have you here with us to talk about your work that has inspired so many people.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much for having me.
You talk about transformation through the power of the mind. Could you tell us how is this possible?
Sure, we have spent probably the last 10 years working on demystifying the process of personal change and transformation. And psychology, or the psychological model, used to say that by the time we're in our middle of our life, our mid-30s, that for the most part our personality is unchangeable. But with some of the new sciences like neuroplasticity and epigenetics, they point the finger at possibility, and in fact, we have been interested deeply in understanding the process, how people can actually change their personality. So your personality simply is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel. Well, most people at the middle of their life keep thinking the same thoughts, they make the same choices, they do the same things, they create the same experiences, and they live by the same feelings and same emotions, and their biology stays the same. So we've been interested in looking to see that if a person can begin to unlearn the way they think, to begin to modify how they behave or stop behaving certain ways, stop feeling certain emotions that keep them connected to the past and start regulating and feeling different emotions, is it possible that their biology, their neurocircuitry, their neurochemistry, their hormones, their gene expression could change when they change? And our data points the finger at that it's absolutely possible. Now, the beauty about this is that the side effect of a personal change or transformation and a change in one person's biology is that many times diseases and health conditions go into remissions because they're no longer the same person. And that has been the interest in the research that we've been doing to say, wow, we have so many people healing from all different health conditions when they truly change who they are. And so then what is the science behind that process? And so we've been researching extensively that process.
Is hitting rock bottom necessary to initiate change?
I think that has been the human condition for a long time. I think when we're brought to our lowest denominator, when we have this point in our life where nothing is making a certain feeling go away, I think that's the time when the person can actually see themselves through the eyes of someone else. And that's the moment they begin to pay attention to how they've been thinking or notice how they've been acting and become aware of how they've been feeling for a certain period in their life. And I think that's the first step to change, is that when we no longer feel like ourselves, we can see ourselves for the first time. And so many people have to get to that point where they don't want to go to dinner with the same people, they don't want to answer the same texts, they no longer want to watch the same TV show because nothing's making that feeling go away. Our understanding is you can learn and change in a state of pain and suffering, or you can learn and change in a state of joy and inspiration. So if you teach people then how to begin to change and they're defining a future, a possible reality, a dream, a vision that they want to experience in their life. If they could begin to combine a clear intention, which is a function of the brain, and an elevated emotion, which is a function of the heart, is it possible that every day when they change their state, they can see their old self from an elevated state instead of a state or at their lowest level? And we've discovered that you can absolutely do that. So the beauty behind it is you don't have to wait for the crisis or the disease or the diagnosis or the loss or the betrayal to finally start the process of change that we've discovered. That it's actually, there's a scientific way that we've discovered that you can teach people how to do that no differently than teaching them anything that they want to learn, like a sport or a dance. It's the same.
But why do they resist so much? Because generally people resist changing.
Yeah. Well, the simple answer is because the moment you decide to change, the hardest part about change is not making the same choice as you did the day before. And the moment you decide to no longer make the same choice, you're stepping from what we call the known into the unknown. And a habit is a redundant set of automatic, unconscious thoughts, behaviors, and emotions that's acquired through repetition. A habit is when you've done something so many times, the body now knows how to do it better than the conscious mind. So most people then, when it gets to the time to change and they step out of the habit of being themselves, it feels uncomfortable. It feels unfamiliar. There's some uncertainty. They can't predict what's going to happen in the next moment. And if the body has been conditioned to be the mind, then the body wants to return back to familiar territory. And that's when we start to hear the voices in our head that says, start tomorrow, you'll never change, it's because of this person that your life is the way it is. And if we respond to that thought as if it's the truth, that thought leads to the same choice, which leads to the same behavior, which creates the same experience, which produces the same feeling and emotion, and the person returns back to the same self. And so teaching people how to cross that river of change of going from the old self to the new self, there is a neurological, there is a biological, there is a chemical, there is a hormonal genetic death of the old self. But if you teach them then tools to use to begin to make those changes, many times people are able to literally cross that river of change and trust in the unknown instead of resist it.
How can we tap to this unlimited potential that humans have?
Well, I do believe that we are greater than we think. I think we're more powerful than we know. I think we're more unlimited than we could ever dream. And I think when you give people the right proper knowledge and information, and I think science is the contemporary language of mysticism. I think science is what demystifies the mystical. So if you can help people build models of understanding by using science, and nothing is left to conjecture or to superstition or to dogma, and they understand exactly what they're about to do and why they do it, then the how gets easier because they can assign meaning to the task. And when they assign meaning to any task, they can produce a greater outcome. So then when people begin to change the way they think, and they begin to think differently, and they begin to act differently, and they begin to feel differently, the side effect of that is we've seen people with cancers and serious stage 4 cancers, ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, blindness, deafness. I know it sounds crazy, but when people truly change their personality, then it's easy then that their biology begins to change. So I have been mystified by what I've seen when people have made some type of transformation.
Sometimes we cannot change external circumstances, but how can we do to not to let them interfere or determine in our inner order? Because
yes,
sometimes
it's a great question because
like the instinct is like to really get involved with this external circumstances.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, to change then, the definition of change, the model that we use is that you have to be greater than your environment, the conditions in your environment. You have to be able to think, act, and feel differently in the same conditions in your environment. That's called change. And many people, though, when they wake up and they go to the same places and they see the same people and they do the same thing at the exact same time, on some level, the environment is actually controlling the way they feel and the way they think. And anything that controls our feelings or our thoughts, in a sense, we're victim to those circumstances. So then teaching people then how to regulate their emotional states so that their response to some person or some condition in their environment doesn't weaken their organism is giving them tools to be able to self-regulate. And that's exactly how people begin to change. When they literally become a different person in the same environment, that means they're no longer a victim to their environment, and their life begins to change.
From your scientific experience, what are the effects that meditation has on the brain and body?
Yes, that's one of the things that we have spent so much time studying. We have extensive research. We have over 18,000 brain scans. We've measured people's brains when they immerse themselves in a 7-day retreat. And the effects of meditation, at least the work that we do, creates more order, more coherence, more synchronization in the brain. And that's a really great thing, especially when you're trying to pay attention in your life. We've seen that people can make their brain work better in 7 days, but not just a little better, a whole lot better. They can make their heart work better if they're given the proper tools to do it. For example, when we feel frustrated, when we feel impatient, when we feel resentful, our heart beats out of order. And when you begin to feel more heart-centered, elevated emotions, and you can teach people how to do that, their heart begins to function more orderly and more coherently. And there's dramatic effects when the heart moves into coherence and how it affects the brain. And so we teach people how to create this kind of brain and heart coherence and begin to regulate their autonomic nervous system back into balance and homeostasis. And stress is when the brain and body are knocked out of balance and order. That's autonomic dysregulation. And so the side effect of meditation is that the autonomic nervous system tends to regulate. And when it does, the body begins to become more healthy. We've seen that people can strengthen their immune system when they trade those limited emotions for elevated emotions by 50% in just 4 days. Our data shows that if you take the blood of advanced meditators and you subject that plasma to a pseudovirus that is a lot like a SARS-CoV-2 virus, that there's a natural immunity in the plasma of the advanced meditator, and we just published a paper on that recently that has been accepted. If you take the plasma of an advanced meditator and you put it in the presence of cancer cells, somehow there's information in the blood of an advanced meditator that tends to decrease the amount of energy by up to 70% in all kinds of different cancer cells. We've seen that there's information in the plasma of advanced meditators that has a correlation with Alzheimer's genes to downregulate those genes. We've seen that people can change their microbiome within 7 days, and that the plasma of advanced meditators, as well as novice meditators, upregulate thousands of different gene expressions. And so our data is showing that in so many ways that your autonomic nervous system tends to be a great pharmacist, that it releases all kinds of different factors, right down to endogenous morphine-like substances that reduce pain. And that's one of the things that we see happens quite a bit in the work that we do. So we have a lot of really powerful data to show that transformation is actually possible, and not only possible, but a reality, especially in a 7-day retreat.
Dr. Dispenza, and how was your first contact with meditation? Why did you start meditating?
For me, it was just an interest because I was more excited about, as a younger person, just being able to program your subconscious mind to be able to work for you instead of against you. And meditation is a great way. And when we teach meditation in the work that we do, we don't teach any traditional meditation. In fact, all we do is look at the data that we've collected, and our meditations are based on the scientific data. So we don't do any particular type of traditional or religious meditations. We actually just use the scientific research that we've discovered to instruct meditation practices. So my meditation interest started because I wanted to be able to program my subconscious mind in different ways. And so I had an interest in self-hypnosis and hypnosis, even from everything from academics to sports and to things that I love to do, as well as some of the mystical things that I was interested in as a young person. And so I think science has become the contemporary language of mysticism. And I think when we show people the data that we have that says that meditation can change many things in your body, and when people see some of the testimonials of when people truly do change their life and change themselves and change their health, I think evidence really is the loudest voice, and I think it's a great time in history where people can really begin to practice it.
And what is your personal secret to live in harmony?
Yeah, for me, well, I practice the work as much as I can. And as I said, when I can sustain that level of internal order, independent of anything in my outer environment, somehow there are wonderful synchronicities and opportunities and unknown events that appear as a result of my change. So I practice the work. I do my own internal meditations, and I like to experiment to see if it produces outcomes in my life.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Joe Dispenza, for joining us today and for sharing all your knowledge. It was a really pleasure to have you here with us.
Thank you so much, Dolores.